that he's going to fillet this fish very similar to how you would fillet a bass or a bluegill or a crappie. Wait just a second. And is that Ryan is just simply cutting this just as you would with anything else. He's starting right along the opercle. That's this bone right here. And then he's following that down. The big difference is that Ryan knows that there's a series of pine cone shaped bones right here. You can see where Ryan filleted it last. You can kind of see how that looks like a pine cone. Anyway, go ahead. But what Ryan's doing with this, the aid of his knife, is that he's making sure not to push down so hard where he's cutting through bones. That's the biggest problem that people run into with this fish, is that if you push too hard, you're going to end up with bones in the flesh, and it's not going to be boneless, right? So what Ryan's doing now is he's actually just taking that flesh, taking the fillet right off the vertebral column, and now what he's doing is he's going over the top of the rib bones, just as you would with the bass, bluegill, or crappie. So now that he has this removed, I mean, if you take a quick look at that flesh, I mean, it's white, right? The one thing that I'd like to point out to everybody is that this fish, high in omega-3 fatty acids, is low in contaminants because the plankton of what it consumes is actually, that plankton that's out in the water column, it doesn't have a long generation time. So actually, any contaminants that would be associated with that wouldn't be imparted on the flesh. So now what Ryan's going to do is that he's actually going to, just to make it a little bit easier to work with, is he's going to split that fillet right down the center. Once he splits it down the center, holy moly, that's really sharp. Anyway, so now what Ryan's going to do is that just as you would with anything else, is that he has to take the skin off the back side of the flesh. That's all he's doing now. He's just taking the flesh right off the top. Now, the one thing that we do end up with here, and with a lot of our big river migratory fishes, is that they end up having this red mussel right here. Red mussel, that's used for long distance or sustained swimming. This white flesh here, that's white mussel and is actually used for short burst swimming. So on species that have a high migratory capacity, you're going to see a pretty good proportion of the flesh that's actually going to be constituted in this red mussel. The problem with red mussel is that red mussel tends to impart that really fishy taste. So what Ryan's going to do now is he's got to remove that red mussel in order to maximize our flesh quality when you guys get to try it. So that's all Ryan's doing now, is he's just taking his knife now and he's going to trim off that red mussel. You don't have to get all of it off, but you do want to make a point to try to get most of it off of there. Yeah, go ahead and trim it up just a little bit. So yeah, that's really all he's doing now, is he's just trying to get the majority of that red mussel off of there. Alright, so now what Ryan's going to do is that now he's got to find the Y bones, the dreaded Y bones, right? So, the Y bones in this fish. So we have this as the top loin, right? So I'm going to draw that up here on the board. This is that loin that's Ryan's holding his hand. The thing about the Y bone is that the Y bone is sitting, it's actually positioned right in the center of this fillet, and I have that drawn out here. And what Ryan's going to do is he's actually going to make a cut on the top side of those Y bones. And the way that Ryan locates those is that he simply takes his hand and he runs it along there until he feels that line. And all he's going to do now is he's simply going to make a cut on the top side of those Y bones and on the bottom side of that Y bone. Just like that.
Like a V.
Kind of like a V. So, the one thing that Ryan's doing is he's not cutting all the way down through the flesh, though. As soon as he, like I said, remember the key to this is that as soon as you feel bones, don't cut anymore. So now you can see what I'm talking about. Ryan has made this cut. Now let's show him this angle, Ryan. So basically that Y bone is setting like this. That's how Ryan's holding it. I'm showing it here. Ryan has just simply made a cut right there and right there. Just like that. Everybody see that? So now what Ryan's got to do is that we have to get rid of this Y bone. So what better to do than to make a cut right there and make a cut right there. And all Ryan's going to do is he's going to cut until he reaches the end of that Y bone. He doesn't want to cut that whole fillet off yet. So he's just getting it out to the point where you can see the end of the Y bones, and I want you to stop as soon as you get that side done and show them what we mean. And if Ryan didn't have to, if I wasn't holding him up on a lot of this thing, you can imagine how much faster it would go. But I'm holding him up. But you can see if you take a quick peek right here, right in here, you can actually see the tips of those Y bones. And Ryan's just cutting out till he gets to the edge of there. Now, the beauty of this next step is that you can see right here we have a beautiful nugget of flesh that also needs to be included into that fillet. So all Ryan has to do now is flip that fillet over, and now he's going to make a cut right here, follow that Y bone out until he meets that other cut, and what he's going to end up with is one boneless nugget right there, which that's that piece, and then he's going to do exactly the same thing on the other side, and he's going to end up with another boneless piece of meat. Now the really cool part about this is, and we haven't even gotten to the bottom half yet, but imagine all the possibilities that you could do with this. I mean, you can cook this any way. You can skewer it, which is probably my most favorite way to do it. You take and you marinate this in soy sauce, ginger, sriracha, some garlic, sesame oil, and then you marinate it in that for just, I don't know, a few hours. And then you take and you'll cut that up into small strips. And then you put that out on the barbecue grill about 4 or 5 minutes on each side, and then make you up some good Asian dipping sauce, and that's absolutely fabulous way to eat it. You can also bake it in the oven. You know, the way that I like to think about it is that, you know how Bubba Gump was telling Forrest all the different ways that he could cook shrimp? That's exactly how you can do this fish. My father is a chef, and he says, Quentin, you can make this flesh taste like anything. So because it's such a delicate sort of neutrally flavored fish, any flavoring or any seasoning that you put associated with this is going to impart those flavors of the seasoning that you put on it. Now, as I was saying, this is also a really healthy fish, and for the sake of what we're doing today, yeah, frying it probably isn't the healthiest, but you are still getting the benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids. But frying it, that's probably my favorite way to eat it. Fried fish is really good to eat, but anyway, the grilling it or baking it's also quite delicious. So one thing you'll notice is that these are those Y bones that we were talking about that are in the flesh, that are embedded in that loin, and that's all boneless. These are all the bones that Ryan removed from that flesh. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like to deal with bones while I'm eating fish. That's why we came up with this method to be able to do that. So now, because we don't want to waste anything, we need to do the bottom half too. So what Ryan's going to do now is he's going to fillet that bottom half of the flesh. But the beauty of the bottom half is that the first third, where he was going over the top of that rib cage, is that's all boneless. That's all boneless meat. There's no bones in that. How many crappies and bluegills does it take to make that? Yeah, quite a few, right? At least the size of bluegills I catch. And then anyway, on the rest of it, or the other 2/3 that's remaining, Ryan's going to do exactly the same thing that he did on the top half. You got Y bones that you have to deal with again, and you have the red meat on the back side. So Ryan's just going to get rid of that red meat. Close enough. And then he's going to find those Y bones right along the midline there. And he's going to make a cut on the upper half, and then he's going to make a cut on the bottom half. And then once he makes those cuts, then he's just going to follow that out, just like we did on here. And you can again see the ends of those Y bones.